Hello and welcome back. Sean here. Mountains Garage, Wednesday evening edition. This week I decided to try something not necessarily new, but just pause halfway through the week and talk about how things are coming together, what's going on. So here we are. I am in a high state of readiness to assemble my 9-inch Ford rear end project, with the exception of the lube blocker gasket that I decided to try in lieu of RTV. It's an excellent format to try it on to see if it all fits, because it's thicker than normal, and when I narrow a housing, I typically decide whether I'm going to run a gasket or not, and I have that in there with the jig because the gasket's moving the rear end, the center section, away from the axle center line. So we'll see how it all fits together, maybe tomorrow night. But I am ready. I cut the axles. The goal is using this dog bone from ICT Billet. You need to leave this window open at your axle cut line because that's your center pin of the differential. And this particular differential has not only the center pin, but there's like a washer next to it, or a stop. The axle's going to hit that before it hits the center pin. So I actually went a little generous. I don't think it's going to hurt anything, and I hope it's enough. It kind of has to be. So that's never steered me wrong before. So let's hope it all fits together. Like I say, I cut about 3/4 of an inch off each axle. And just for kicks, I had a bunch of other stuff to weld up yesterday, so I bored the center of one piece, took a piece of 3/8 rod, and now marked it 31 spline, because I'm always trying a differential. I'll pick one up somewhere, bring it home. It's supposed to be 31 spline. It's a lot easier to have a go-no gauge than it is to try to count them, especially when it's all full of gear oil and stuff. So I made a tool out of it. And this one can be a paperweight. So that's done. Axles are cut. I used my chop saw. I actually set it up outside last Saturday morning just so I don't fill the shop full of that smell. I probably could have used the bandsaw, but that would require me to fix the lube. It stopped working for some reason, and I gotta fix it because I use that a lot. The last time I needed the lube, I was building the bead rollers and I was cutting some really thick material, and it's probably just plugged up. So it's not empty, so we'll check it out. The parts have been rolling in all week. I got my early big Ford housing ends today that seem to be correct and really nice. I got these, came from Quick Performance once again. I didn't recognize, they have different seller names on eBay apparently, so I got 2 packages today. One was my bearing retention plates, which came from Quick Performance. I got these off Amazon. And the early big Ford housing ends are on eBay. Once again, it doesn't say Quick Performance, it says somebody else. I could look it up, but these plates are listed as fitting small Ford and late big Ford Torino. I question whether this hole is big enough. I could match them up with the other ones I have, but I guess I'm gonna leave it up to chance tomorrow, or maybe when I'm done shooting the video, maybe I will dig them out and check. When I looked at them, I said, whoa, those look kind of small. But I'm ready over here to assemble. I took some time today to weld on some studs, and I finally thought to order. I'm the holdup on parts. I can't blame anybody else but myself. Like, it was just this morning, and I'm like, wow, I wish I had my 1970 Nova flexible hose for the brakes, which I'm gonna mount on this stud here. These other studs are just I'll put P-clamps around the brake line just to hold it on the axle. And I find it makes a nice, neat arrangement. There's no other provisions for it to hold the brake line, and it would, this one's this long, you'd be flopping around you got to hold it still. So I welded those on. I touched up any spots on the housing there was a couple spots that had some spot rust, nothing serious, and some spatter from welding, so I got rid of most of that. I installed my fill and drain plugs. I went ahead and put pipe sealant on and put them in, because before I set the third member in, I want to spray 336 in there, because this is all raw metal. And even if I put oil in it, I don't want the rest of it rusting while it's sitting. It's all brand new right now, so I'm going to spray inside each tube to try to prevent rust on the inside. I put my seals in already. Those drove in nicely. I actually set the rear end, vertical. Pop those in, all lubed up. We are definitely ready to assemble. So I have some flexible hoses coming, some extra ones, because that's the one I use on everything. And I hadn't ordered any parking brake cables. I had a set, but I used them on the LS Swap Dart. I put a 9-inch Ford in that, unfortunately, before I get rid of it. And the straps for these NASCAR style yokes take a strap with 2 bolts. I had given the last set away last spring, so I got those coming in the morning. Again, all my fault. I should have sat down, and I'm really good at this most of the time, but this one I was just winging it apparently. So any holdup is all my fault. Can you see me back here? I got my intake the day before yesterday, and I got my fuel rails today, and I spent a few minutes this afternoon bolting on the elbow. Now, the Holley elbow I bought used, even though it's brand new. It was an auction on eBay used. And all the hardware seemed to be there, even the nuts and washers to attach it to the manifold, but the studs were missing. So I got some packages of studs in my collection of small block parts. And I wasn't happy. I'm a fastener snob, as I mentioned. The nuts that come with the stud kit I bought, a 12 millimeter on a 5/16 fine thread bolt. That's not going to fly. So the Holley elbow came with, standard 1/2-inch hex nuts, and I ended up using a 1/4-inch USS washer over the 5/16 stud. Is nice and tight, and a lock washer that I'll eventually tighten down. These are still finger tight because I'm just trying everything on. I also found and bought a Edelbrock elbow. It was, again, brand new, but an auction on eBay. And I got it, and definitely I prefer the Holley one, because the Holley has 4 ports plus a MAP sensor port made into the elbow. The Edelbrock has nothing. So if I put the Edelbrock elbow on here, all I have is a 1/3/8 pipe thread hole in the back of the intake that, for me, I'm going to hook my PCV to that. And the Holley elbow gives me a lot more options for vacuum lines and such. So that's cool. I have a silver and a black throttle body. I think I'm going to run the black one. Again, this is not going for any sort of look. So the Holley elbow is genuine Holley, says right on it. The manifold is a white box, goes by the Holley part number. And same with the fuel rails. If you study fuel rails, there's only a couple versions out there. Aftermarket intake, which these are, that's how it's listed by the Holley number. Trailblazer SS and truck manifold takes a different set of rails. And these rails are cheap. They're like $40. Quality of the rail itself seems fine, hopefully. I mean, you're dealing with fuel pressure. You probably shouldn't cheap out. I don't know about the crossover line. The fittings seem really cheap. If you have experience running the cheap stuff, let me know. I feel odd buying cheap junk. I feel like I'm cheating myself and others, but we'll see how that works out. But anyway, the manifold came with the O-rings and the bolts, and everything fit just fine. My injectors are, I'm going to call them medium length, because the short brackets are too short and the long brackets are too long. So I need a 1/2-inch spacer, which I'm going to order tonight. I had some 3/8 spacers, and I could make that work, but I want one solid spacer, and the bolt, that'll be a piece of cake. and we'll be almost done with this project. So kind of exciting. It definitely moves everything back this way, which was the goal packaging wise. So I'm not sure how or where I will regulate the fuel. I think I want to regulate it before the rail. If I was racing it, you can regulate it after the rail. That way you're putting more pressure to the rail and the injectors. But for street, I think I'm going to regulate it before the rail. So that's that. My missing slick. If you watched the video the other day, UPS dropped off just one and I bought two. I sent an email through eBay on Saturday. I didn't expect to hear anything until Monday morning, and sure enough, I have tracking on the second tire, which is coming from another location. Originally, they were both in Ohio. Again, this is Summit Racing selling on eBay. So I believe this one's coming out of Arlington, Texas, I think. It's coming out of Texas. I think it's a brand new tire, $710 and change or whatever. So either way, it'll be here tomorrow or Friday. Tomorrow is Thursday, exciting day. I'm gonna go with my buddy Charlie, who runs the Wild Street 850 quarter-mile class Camaro with an Island Racing 632. We're going to Island Racing in South Hero, Vermont, with his race car and dropping it off. They're gonna do some work on it, trying to fit a dry sump into it, I guess, to make more power and better oiling. Can't complain about the engine that's in that car. It's been there a dozen years probably. Only been apart a couple times. He runs a lot of runs a year. The thing just makes awesome power, and you couldn't ask for a more reliable motor that I'm aware of. It's got big chief heads, makes a ton of power. And they're building him a second one too. I've never been there. I'm pretty excited. I don't know if I'll film any or not, but it's a fun little road trip. Charlie knows where to stop along the way to get all the good snacks. So I'm gonna get up at 4 a.m. and meet up at his house at 5:30, and we'll head up. It's almost pretty sure you can see New York from there. So New York. Anyway, have a nice evening. That's the update for today. I'm not even sure what to call this video, but it's a video. Talk to you in a couple days. Take care.